Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'm taking my glasses off. I always forget to do that, but I'm doing it now. Today we are going to go over the top 15 most underrated American muscle cars. Not muscle, actually, I don't know why I said muscle. They're just American cars in general. A lot of these are not muscle cars. I recently did one on the 15 most underrated European cars, and then I did one on the 15 most underrated Japanese cars. So naturally, we're doing it with America, baby. These are obviously cars that I personally think are underrated. If you love one of these cars and it's like everything that you think about is this car, then obviously it's not underrated to you. You love it. But this is just my opinion, guys. So if you think I missed one, or if you think one doesn't belong, just let me know in the comments. You don't gotta write a hate comment. If you write a hate comment, you know what's gonna happen. You know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna send a VTOL jet to your house, and they're gonna so just you know, I would recommend not doing that. But without further ado, let's get right into the video with the 15th most underrated American car. Coming in at number 15 is a car that my father used to love, and I don't think he likes it anymore for some reason, because I haven't heard him talk about it in a while. The Pontiac Solstice, also known as the Saturn Sky. Is that what it's called? The Saturn something? It looks exactly the same, and I'm pretty sure they are exactly the same car. I don't know what motor they come with, but I do know that they had like a Solstice GXP. I really don't know much about the car because it's that underrated, but I'm basically going off of looks with this one, because I personally think the Solstice looks incredible. I don't care if the car doesn't have a good motor in it. I don't care if it's slow around a track. I don't care. I just think it looks good, and the looks alone carry it to the underrated status, in my opinion. A lot of people out there nowadays don't really care about performance anyway. Like, you see all these guys with the stance cars, they're not caring about performance. They could give a hoot and a holler about performance. So why isn't this more popular? You know what I'm saying? I think it makes no sense, man. It hurts. Coming in at the number 14 spot, have you ever sat there and thought to yourself, you know what car I love? The Chrysler PT Cruiser. No, you haven't, because nobody has. But that makes sense, you know? It's not a really flashy car. It looks pretty ugly. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of the uglier cars out there. And they don't come with a great motor. But what if I were to tell you that those boys at Dodge were crazy enough to slap by the way, in case you don't know, Chrysler owns Dodge. I feel like I don't have to explain that, but just in case I do, that's why I said that. They slapped the SRT4 Neon motor in the Chrysler PT Cruiser and called it the Chrysler PT Cruiser GT. The GT stands for Go Turtles. And it still does look incredibly ugly. Obviously, it's still a PT Cruiser, so you got to keep that in mind. It's still not going to be as fast as an SRT4 just because its aerodynamics and its weight are so ridiculous. But the fact that they even put an SRT4 motor in it with a manual transmission is baller, and I think more people should talk about that. Coming in at the number 13 spot, Friday the 13th, is going to go to the Chevy Cobalt SS. I talk about this car a lot, but I feel like a lot of people don't really care. Even when I bring it up in my videos, people are just like, meh, all right, Chevy Cobalt SS, whatever. And I don't really think that it deserves that. These cars make incredible horsepower. You know, everybody likes the Ford Focus ST. That's a really cool car, right? Like, everybody likes the Focus ST. Who doesn't like the Focus ST? Well, the Cobalt SS came out, what, 15 years earlier than that car? And it had the same horsepower. The same horsepower. It comes with it makes 260 horsepower factory. On top of that, you can very easily tune this car to make more horsepower if you want to. This is like one of those cars that came out during that like American tuner craze, where all the companies were trying to make people like them and think that they were hip. And so Chevy did the Cobalt, Ford did the Focus SVT, and Dodge did the Neon SRT4. And out of those, the only one that really took off was the SRT4, but I feel like all of them are really cool, especially the Cobalt SS. Coming in at number 12 is going to the Ford Mustang GT SN95. And before you are all like, oh my god, there's no way this guy's putting a Mustang GT on a list of underrated American cars. I am. And because I think it's underrated. Now, when I say underrated, it doesn't mean that it like doesn't get love. The car gets love, obviously. People know about the SN95, but I think it deserves more love than it gets. I really do. These cars are incredible options, especially for a first-time driver. Like, if you're not a first-time driver, but for like a cheap project car or something like that, they're rear-wheel drive, make 230 horsepower with a freaking V8 under the hood that you could very easily get more horsepower out of, and you can do all that for less than $5,000. On top of that, I really think the SN95 / New Edge, they're pretty much exactly the same chassis code, just facelifted, are very good-looking cars too. Like, a lot of people maybe don't, because they don't look like your typical muscle car. They're more small. They look like a sports car almost, but I think it worked perfectly. I think more people need to talk about this. Coming in at the number 11 spot is going to go to the wonderful Plymouth Duster. Now, I'm not a big older muscle car fan. My dad loved them his whole life, so I do know a lot about them, but not because like I chose to, just because I kind of picked up after whatever he was saying. But the Plymouth Duster is a car that I have never heard about before making this video. I was looking up just like cool muscle cars, that underrated muscle cars, you know, like I was just looking up stuff like that, and this is one of the ones that came up and I fell in love immediately. Back in the day, I feel like Chrysler in general was just making some absolute bangers. They had the freaking Hemi Cuda, they had the freaking Coronet, and then this thing, the Duster, they had the Dodge Dart back then, the Charger, the Challenger, obviously. Oh my god, they were just making banger, 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 and they did not miss with this car either. But I feel like I didn't even know it existed. So I feel like a lot of people just like don't talk about this one when it looks very cool. Coming in at the number 10 spot is gonna go to like the modern version of the Plymouth Duster in a way. Not at all, actually. I don't know why I said that, but it's a Chevy SS. It's not even made by the same company. I don't know why where I was going with that like analogy, but either way, the Chevy SS is incredibly underrated. If for Australians, they like these cars, and that's because Australians are smart. They have the same thing out there, but they're made by Holden or HSB or whatever company it is that makes Chevy products out there, and they love them out there for good reason. These things are sick. They come with an LS motor, which is incredible. They obviously look like kind of like a normal car, but even like a car guy is going to drive up next to this thing and realize that it's not a normal car, whereas normal people are going to drive up next to it and be like, oh, it's just another Chevy, you know, sedan. But it's not. It's hiding something underneath it. So if you like sleepers, that's another thing. It's like, remember the Cadillac CTS-V, which got a lot of love for sure. I still don't think it got enough love, but the Cadillac CTS-V, and it's like that, but made by Chevy. It's like the Cadillac CTS-V, but from Chevy. Now, coming in at 9th place is a good way to divide a community from a car really quickly, because this is the Ford Taurus SHO. And the reason why I say that they got divided really quickly is because Ford made the crucial mistake. Well, I guess it's not a mistake financially, but it was a mistake for the popularity of the car, to give these cars, or I guess to sign a deal with police departments. And so that's why all the police drive these Ford Taurus SHOs, and obviously no car guy wants to drive a car that a police officer drives, so nobody bought them. And nobody talks about them, when in reality they're awesome. They make like 350 horsepower. They're all-wheel drive twin turbo V6. They make incredible horsepower. In terms of its looks, yeah, obviously the looks are very, very boring. I think they don't look manly, they don't look like girly, they just look boring. They look like literally the most, like if somebody were to be like, hey, just show me a picture of a car, like I just want to see a picture of a car, I'd show them a Ford Taurus, because that's all they are. They're just a car. They don't look great, but they handle and perform incredibly. Coming in at the number 8 spot is going to go to the wonderful Pontiac Firebird 4th generation partner. That's right, the 4th gen. In case you guys don't know, the Firebird is pretty much just a rebadged Camaro. Back in the day, they used to make these things for people that wanted a cheaper and different looking Camaro to get into, and I think they did incredible with it. The 4th gen Camaro is also pretty underrated, but the 4th gen Firebird, dude, oh my god. These things are sexy. These are the ones with the honeycomb taillights, the pop-up headlights, the really aggressive like fins and vents and stuff that's all over them. Oh gosh, if you don't like the 4th gen Firebird, I don't like you. I'm dead serious, because these things, every Firebird in general I feel like is pretty underrated, but the 4th gen is just so sexy, man. Look at the thing, look at it. Coming in at the number 7 spot is what happens when you revive a car that was incredibly legendary but put it into the modern era. It's the new Pontiac GTO. Now, a lot of companies have tried doing this in the past, and a couple of them have been very successful. The Ford Bronco, I would say, has been very successful. A lot of people like that. The GTR was really, with the revival with the R35. The Supra was a very successful revival. This one just didn't work. And I think the reason why is because people were expecting it to look more muscle car-like, where it kind of looks like a mixture of muscle car / sports car. But I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think the Pontiac GTO is a very, very good looking car. And in terms of its performance, it is incredible. 400 horsepower, LS motor. You can easily get more horsepower out of that. Rear wheel drive. It is an incredibly fast car. You can find one of these nowadays for around the $10,000 mark, and that is a bargain. Coming in at the number 6 spot, I'm gonna be honest here, I'm a little bit biased, but it's the 90s Chevy Impala SS. And the reason why I'm a little bit biased for this isn't because I actually own one, but it's because my uncle actually owns 2 of them, and so I see them a lot, and I think they're really, really cool cars that are very, very underrated. Like the Impala back in the day, back in the old days, so I'm talking like 50s, 60s, was a very cool car. A lot of people liked them, a lot of people turned them into lowriders, and they were really cool. And then I feel like people started falling off around the 90s. They don't really care about them anymore. But the 90s Impala, in my opinion, is still very cool. It comes with a really good motor, makes pretty good horsepower. It's obviously a little heavy, and I think they were only offered as an automatic transmission, so they didn't have any manual options, which is kind of weird. But it's like, imagine, what's a good way to put it? It's like the Cadillac CTS-V before the Cadillac CTS-V became even a thought in the Cadillac's mind. Coming in at the number 5 spot is going to go to the Ford Probe GT. And before you start roasting me, because I know some American car guys are going to be like, you're an idiot, that car's a piece of junk. I know. Okay, I know the car's a piece of junk. Its engine is horrible. It doesn't handle well. It doesn't make a lot of horsepower. I know that. But in looks alone, I think it just is just, oh my. Now, obviously, cars in the past have become popular with crap engines. Look at the RX-7, RX-8 line. They literally have the rotary engine, which is, I guess, unique, and it's really cool once you get it to work, but it just doesn't, it's overcomplicated, to say the least. And the Ford Probe, just because it doesn't have like the best performance in it, doesn't mean that it's a bad car. It still looks really, really cool in my opinion. Coming in at the number 4 spot is actually, this is a little bit of a weird Mark Roden fun fact for you guys, but this is actually the car that I learned how to drive on, the Pontiac Grand Prix. Now, I think the performance version of it is called like the GXP or whatever. I don't really care. Either one of them are good. The performance one, the base model, it doesn't matter. I'm pretty much just going off the looks anyway. They're front wheel drive cars, so I'm not really looking for crazy horsepower with a front wheel drive car. And they're really just incredibly beautiful looking cars. Now, obviously, a lot of people that used to drive these, they were very cheap. So a lot of people that drove them were not really the kind of people that you'd want to be associated with. They looked kind of raggy half the time. I hate to say that word. It sounds bad, but it's the truth. The cars were always beat up. The people in them were even more beat up. It was just not a good look. But nowadays, now that nobody drives them, you can pick them up for dirt cheap, slam them on the ground, make them look pretty, and you got yourself a nice looking, really nice looking show car for like under $3,000. Coming in at the 3rd position for this list, by the way, my GoPro battery has been running on 5% battery for the past like 20 minutes. I don't know what's going on, but either way, 3rd place is the Dodge Magnum SRT8. This car like went through this weird little spell of love like a couple of years, like maybe a year ago at this point, where like everybody was talking about it, but then it fell off the face of the earth again. Like no one talks about these cars, no one cares about these cars. This is literally, in my opinion, like cooler than something like the I don't know, like the Hellcat or the Hellcat powered Durango. You know, like this is cooler to me because it's a freaking wagon. It's a wagon that makes incredible horsepower. It's got a V8 in it. It's a freaking wagon. What more could you want? On top of that, the car itself looks really, really like mean and cool. Oh my god, these things are so sick, man. I feel like people sleep on these way too much. But 2nd place is a car that I feel like a lot of people are probably going to be a little bit like, how is that underrated? It's the Cadillac CTS-V. And it used to be so stupidly underrated that it actually was like a criminal offense if you didn't like these cars back in the day. But then what happened was people started to talk about it more, and now more and more people know that the CTS-V is a cool car. But I still feel like to this day that they still deserve even more love than they get. This car is just awesome. V8. Rear-wheel drive, awesome looks, luxury. That's what like the Chevy SS that we talked about earlier kind of, you know, matched everything up until that point. And that's what the CTS-V did that was so different, is it not only had the incredible horsepower in a sleeper package like cars like the Chevy SS or the Ford Taurus SHO, but it on top of all that still had the luxury of Cadillac in it. Now obviously they're pretty expensive cars, but they're well worth the price. But you know what I think is even more underrated than the CTS-V? The wonderful Chrysler 300 SRT8. Honestly, I feel like if I walked up to somebody and I said, hey man, do you like the Chrysler 300 SRT8? And he was like, no man, that thing's a piece of junk, I would probably murder him on the spot. I'm just saying, because they're that cool. They come with a Hemi V8, which is already just like right there. You know, if you even say the words Hemi V8, I'm there. You know what I mean? Like I'm like Batman. It's like the bat symbols in the sky. If I hear that word, I'm going to show up in 2 seconds. If I hear that word, it's an incredible motor. But on top of that, it once again checks off all the boxes. It's a sleeper. It's got incredible space on the inside. It's obviously a land yacht. The thing's freaking heavy as hell, but it's so cool. It's rear wheel drive. Hemi V8, I said it again, it's reliable, kind of, honestly. I was about to say it, like, you know, proudly, but then I thought about it a little bit, and it's not as reliable as you would think it is, but it still is kind of reliable. And it has all the space, luxury, everything that you could possibly want in the normal Chrysler 300, but then stuffed with a freaking V8 in it. Like, what are you talking about, Jeremy? But, ladies and gentlemen, I had it. Look at this. Look at me now. I'm winded. I'm winded after the 300 SRT8, guys. I had to lay down. I was blowing, I was just all over the place. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what other videos that you'd like to see, obviously. I'm always open for new ideas. Now for the Integra build, it might be on pause for a couple more weeks, but only because I'm looking for tires, because I got wheels. And now I'm not going to tell you what kind of wheels I got, but I will tell you, I got them. Okay. Oh, they're there. And they're 15 by 8.5. So if you know Acura Integras, then you know that fitment should be pretty minty. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.